Welcome back, WNST week out at the Castle in Owings Mills as the Ravens prepare for the final battle of their NFC North competitors, where it's been a little bit of a choppy bag for us, but the Detroit Lions come in with at least a starting quarterback. We won't see a whole lot of those through the end of the year, and the highest paid quarterback in the land, who lives on the front of this guy's Twitter page. He is Dan Miller, Fox 2 out on Twitter, and longtime sports director at Fox 2 in Detroit, as well as the Lions radio play-by-play voice. And we welcome him back on from Motown. Now, you guys got this extra rest. We've got short rest, but everybody I've talked to seems to like the way the Ravens are trending right now.
Yeah, and I think you should. They're obviously playing well, and I think they have obviously the defense going, which at this time of year keeps you in games and is a great thing to have in your back pocket. The Lions have been kind of up and down, and I think this extra rest actually is something they really needed because Stafford rolled his ankle in that game, had somebody roll up on him on Thanksgiving Day. So, I think he would have been able to play if it had just been a regular week, but I think a couple more days certainly helped him as well.
Where are we with Matt Stafford in judging him? And we have our own quarterback issues around here. Is Flacco elite? What's his hair look like? How's his beard doing? But he is a Super Bowl champion. That's lacking out there for the Honolulu Blue, Dan. I'm not telling you. And I guess the expectation would be if it doesn't get done, the whole Stafford administration will be a failed administration at this point. But this was a year where it's kind of sitting there a little bit with Aaron Rodgers on the sideline.
Yeah, no question. And they had some opportunities to win some games that have gotten away from them. And, I just think what you see is kind of what you get in terms of how good this team is right now. Just, going big picture before getting to specifically Stafford. They lost Haloti Ngata, who you guys obviously know well, who was still a big part of this defense. Their run defense after that really fell apart. And they lost their top sack guy from a year ago in Kerry Hyder early on. So, the defense has been really kind of strapped and hasn't been consistent. And then offensively, they can't run the ball. They just flat can't run the ball at all. It's another year where, and this gets back to your Stafford question, look, I think he is a terrific quarterback. I think he is, he's not Rodgers, he's not Brady, but take away those top-tier guys, and I'd put him up there with pretty much anybody. And I think that he is somebody that, if you look at it, this team has been better than 23rd in the league in rushing one time in his 9-year career. That was when they were 17th. And he's just never had a balanced offense. They have been a team that has had to pass, and it has just made life tough for him. And I just think it's difficult to be one-dimensional in this league and be successful. What you said is true, though. The only thing that's left for him on his resume is to win. They haven't done that yet, but I would submit to you that Matthew Stafford's part of the solution, not part of the problem. And the problem has been that more often than not, the defense hasn't been very consistent or very good as a bottom line, and the running game has been non-existent. And I think that's a tough way to play quarterback in this league.
And nothing about that changes on Sunday, right? Like, that's been the book for a number of years, and that's the team we're going to see here. A team that is going to struggle to run the ball, but might try against a very stout defense. And then, I guess Stafford's going to flick the ball around. That kind of plays into the Ravens' strength, though. When I think of how the Ravens have won games, not usually against starting quarterbacks with the kind of calibers of wide receivers you have, but the idea is stop the run and get after the quarterback and force those interceptions, force those deflections. Everything that, quite frankly, you probably saw on Monday night with Terrell Suggs running around there like the fountain of youth.
Yeah, no, and what you said is true, and there's a lot of layers to what you just said. But, yes, they will try to run the ball. What we've seen this season and in recent history tells us that they'll have a difficult time doing it without even any regard to a very good Ravens defense. But, I think to your point, that plays into every team's strength in this league. And it's not to take anything away from the Ravens or what they've done or their terrific secondary, but every team in this league goes into a game wanting to make you one-dimensional. And if you come in one-dimensional before the game even kicks off, well, you've put the other team in a very good position, and you've put your quarterback in a very difficult position. So, look, it's a fact of life. This team went out and spent a lot of money on the right side of their offensive line to bring in Rick Wagner, who you guys obviously know, and to bring in T.J. Lang. And it still hasn't worked out in terms of the running game. Now, they've had some injuries to deal with, but it has not been productive in terms of Stafford being able to hand the ball to somebody and have something good happen. I mean, they haven't had a 100-yard rusher since 2013.
That's hard to do, man.
No, let me tell you something. I mean, that actually means that you didn't have anybody break off a big run and then just have an average game after that. They've had 7 100-yard rushers in Stafford's 9-year career. I mean, let that sink in. And I'm a big Stafford guy. I just think you got to get him some help. And I know they've tried, but it just hasn't worked out yet.
We got Dan Miller on the line. He is out in Detroit. Every time I have you on, I think of the Fox Force 5 from with the Pulp Fiction movie, right? But I love your alfalfa guy there. On the front. Why alfalfa on the front of your Twitter, Dan?
That was after a voice crack last year. I was after a voice crack last year in the Minnesota game when they had come back in some crazy comeback, and my voice cracked, and I said, you know what, alfalfa's voice used to crack too. So I threw it in there, and then I was just too lazy to change it.
Well, I figured you must have been saying the word Darla or something like that. But he is the sports director at Fox 2. You can find him at Dan Miller, Fox 2 as well. How's my boy Ricky Wagner doing out there? I mean, we talked a little bit about Haloti Ngata, some beloved Ravens, including Jimmy Caldwell, and as well as some members of the defensive staff there as well. There's a lot of purple running around out there, but the Rick Wagner thing was we were kind of sorry to see him go. Didn't want to pay him all that money on the offensive line. Have done a nice job here with Austin Howard, but he was a good player here.
No, he's been a good player here. The offensive line as a whole hasn't clicked yet. They lost their left tackle last year in the offseason. Taylor Decker's going to be playing in his 3rd game when they come back. So, I mean, they retooled this offensive line, brought in a new right side. Decker was coming off a terrific rookie season, then he got hurt. So you're in essence going to see this offensive line that they had envisioned play together for the 3rd time this week against Baltimore. So it's a work in progress, but I think they're very confident that when all is said and done, to go back to what I said earlier, Wagner's going to be part of the solution more than part of the problem, because I think there's some decisions they have to make along that offensive line during this coming off season, but I think they really like what they have on the right side with Lang and with Wagner.
Who's the best player on the Detroit Lions, Dan?
Matthew Stafford.
And that's it. End of story. No stuttering. I've had some stuttering so far this week for some folks.
No. He's. I mean, I wish for his critics, and I understand it because ultimately quarterbacks are tied to winning. For his critics, I wish they could see him play, and I wish they would. I've seen every snap of his career, and I've called every throw. And I know what he's capable of, but I also know there's very few quarterbacks in this league that can do it, when you're not surrounded by a cast that's capable of supporting you and running the ball and a good defense. I mean, it's difficult. And maybe Rodgers can do it. Maybe Brady can do it. Not many guys can, but I think even if you look back, heck, last year, look at the running attack that Brady had and what LeGarrette Blount did, and look what, Rodgers has had for a defense in the past. And they've been up and down in Green Bay. There have been some years where they haven't been very good, but it's just, there's no hesitation if you ask me who the best player on this team is. And the one guy that could have given him a run, if you'd asked me 2015, was Ziggy Ansah, but he got hurt last year and he hasn't been the same since. And that's another thing that has hurt this team. He was the guy that was supposed to really anchor that pass rush, but it hasn't happened. And I'll throw one other guy out at you that deserves, 2 guys that deserve, conversation. One would be Darius Slay, who has turned into really one of the better corners in this league. He's really developed, worked hard. And the other is Glover Quinn, who just quietly goes about his job and is a Pro Bowl caliber safety, just a really terrific quarterback on the back end of your defense.
Any thoughts on the Ravens from Monday night in regard to Joe Flacco? And this offense has its problems. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I know in Detroit it's been sort of a similar circumstance because of down and distance and having to throw because that's all you can do. Around here, Flacco's been maligned and running for his life. I don't know that it's getting any better. I guess for Monday night and certainly against the Packers a week and a half ago out of Lambeau Field, at least it's not getting any worse. At least it's trending in somewhat of a a livable direction that you feel like you can win games if you're playing defense the way they're playing it right now. But offensively, I mean, it's a PU league to some degree on the offensive line. But for the Ravens and the Lions, this could be another one of those ugly matchups if you like pretty football, right?
No, and you can definitely win games playing defense the way that the Ravens are playing it right now. I mean, it keeps you in games. And I think then, the recipe offensively is don't make mistakes. Your defense is going to keep you in the game. Don't give it away. Don't give short fields. Don't allow the opposing defense to score. And that's, sometimes what has come back to hurt the Lions. But, look, in watching them play, obviously offensively they've been challenged this year. They seem to have found a little something in Collins. There's something there. He's fun to watch, and he's given them some production, at least from the limited time that I've been able to watch him. You got some veteran receivers in there that have been around the league and can make some plays, but obviously if you're not striking balance, you don't have time for your quarterback. It's difficult for them to make plays, and that's what I've seen in the limited time that I've watched Flacco this year and the couple of times that I've watched Baltimore play. I will say this, and maybe I'm overestimating. To me, they've looked better with Collins in there than they looked before they got him. And it might end up being a heck of a find for a guy that Seattle just let go. But you know what? If you can strike some sort of balance, at least for a second, you can freeze those teams with play action, and that might make a little bit of difference. And I'll throw this out at you as well. We've seen struggling offenses before, and it's the Lions' challenge to not let them get healthy against Detroit. But I can tell you today from spending time with Coach Caldwell, and this will come as no surprise to you or anybody else, because you guys know what kind of guy he is. He's got tremendous respect for Joe Flacco. And I asked him today, I actually said, what is it that you like about this guy? And he said, he wins. He said he wins. And I think he's heard all the criticism of Joe Flacco, but I think a coach respects a guy that figures out how to win. And I know that sometimes there might be frustration there.
I think Joe spoke to that, Dan, after the game. Late into the night, Monday night, maybe not everybody was up, but Joe talked about the limitations of the offense, and this is the way we're winning right now, and that's good, that we're winning. Do we want to do better?
Sure.
Have
a choice.
Yeah, but
you don't have a choice. This is the hand you're dealt. I mean, it's you need to figure out a way to win, and it might not be the way that you used to win, but you got to figure out a way to do it. It's like the Lions. You can't keep just banging your head against the wall thinking you're going to run the football. At some point you realize Matthew Stafford's right arm is the best thing you got. Well, Baltimore right now, if you don't have anything, particularly that's working for you on offense, man, just don't screw it up. Find a way to let that defense get you to hang around until the fourth quarter and then make one more play than the other guy, but don't make a play that helps the other guy.
Oh, what the hell? Let the punter throw a pass or something, right? I mean, right?
Hey, we've seen that before. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But look, you just in this league, you find a way to get to Monday with a win behind you, and then you try to get better. That's all you can do. You only have 16 games. They're all big, and Baltimore's in the thick of this thing. The Lions are on the outskirts of this thing, but still in it. And we're heading to December. They're playing each other. And it's going to be fun. I mean, look, there have been years where the Lions have been completely irrelevant by now, and I'm not trying to lower the bar or anything, but this is what you want, is to have something to play for when you get to this point in the season.
Marty Morningwig coming with a homecoming for the Lions. I forget how many places he's been, right? But I mean, been all over the place. But ran the joint out there. And there's even more purple and Honolulu blue intertwining in all of this, right?
Yeah, there is, and Marty's a good man, and I enjoyed dealing with him when he was here, and I spent a lot of time with him and got to know him, and that was a tough time for anybody to be the head coach of the Lions when they were going through that transition, and they just didn't have much talent back then, so there wasn't much he was going to do to turn this thing around. So any success that he has, I'm happy for, because he's a quality guy, and it's not easy when you come into a situation and you're going into a game on Sunday and you clearly don't have what the other team has. And that's what he faced pretty much every game that he was here as head coach of the Lions.
Dan Miller, Fox 2 is the way to follow. Dan, he doesn't look like Alfalfa in real life. It's just his Twitter picture there as well. You can find him out there as well as at Fox 2 and calling Lions games on Sunday as they come in for more than just the crab cake. Last thing for you, I'm interested to see the rebound of the Lions. Perennially they never get it done. They never get there as an organization. And for this whole staff, that was a pretty devastating loss on Thanksgiving Day, right? I mean, that was the chance to jump back in this thing, right, and be a bigger part of something more than let's try to claw around to get to 10 wins and be a wild card. That's a tough one, and that hasn't happened at the hands of the Vikings much. That's usually the Packers thing, right?
No, that is a very, very good observation. It is a team that went into that game that they'd already beaten Minnesota in Minnesota. So if you win that, you're one game back and you've got the tiebreaker in hand. So it was a tough one. I think that's probably good that they had a couple extra days to get over it and figure things out. But there's no question that knocks you out of the division. Now you're just hunting for a wild card. I think what you have to look at if you're the Lions is you're the same team that won 3 games in a row before you lost to the Vikings. So you got to figure out some way to get back in it. And there's some similarities between these two teams right now. But when Sunday ends, one of these teams is going to be in much better shape.
Is it weird going and watching hockey in Detroit someplace other than the Joe?
It's more comfortable, I'll tell you that. I mean, look, the Joe had its charms because of the success the team had there, but it had, long outlived its usefulness, and it had long outlived its, ability to call itself a, stadium with requisite stuff that people like to have to come see a game to work or to come see a game to enjoy as fans. And the new arena is just outstanding. I mean, they got every bell and whistle in there that they found around the country that they wanted to put in it, and it's terrific, and it is fun. And, the Wings have played a little bit better than people thought, but they still have a lot of work to do. The Pistons have been terrific down there. So it's been fun to see people come back to downtown Detroit, and I think it's perfect right where they are. There's a lot of great memories at the Joe. Now it's your job to create new ones in a beautiful new building.
My dear partner Brian Billick here on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation, his son-in-law is a part of that Pistons thing over there, so he's very excited about Detroit basketball. Billick does a lot of tweeting about the Pistons these days.
I see his tweets, and I hope he's enjoying this because they got a huge win this week against the Celtics, which was terrific for them to go on the road and do that. And they're playing really, really well. So it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, bad boys. I remember all that stuff, Dan. Hey, great having you on, man. Always a pleasure to visit with you. Don't need to eat any tourist crab cakes around here. If you need some hints, let me know when you come to the Charm City here. It's not as bad as they tell you it is.
No. Look, I'm DC born, so I know Baltimore well. So I always look forward to coming back there. It's a great city.
I always think Detroit. It's better than they say it is.
Hey, we're not complaining. We like it here.
Hey, great having you on, Dan. Thanks for the time, pal.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You got it. Dan Miller, Fox 2. The way to find him out on Twitter, as well as at Fox 2, as well as the Lions radio play-by-play. You can find me out in the bay at Toyota.com Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox free of charge each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month, never any commitment, and you can get some inspiration for the holidays at PlanetOfTriumphs.com. Want to remind everybody the holiday season is here. Make sure you give the King a ring. Lottery, beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore, including my favorite Malbec. I need to get some tequila going here as well. King Discount Liquors. Tell Paul King I'm in the market for some fresh tequila and Malbec. I will see him soon. I do have some stouts left in the refrigerator, so I'm in good shape for the brouhaha. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST.net, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports